Thank you. Keith, would you take roll, please?
I sure can. Tom Murphy.
Here.
Sue Grissom.
Here?
Joe Kalani. Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Jeff Newsom. Chairman Fox.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
All right, thank you. And moving on to item 4, approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved?
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Murphy. Are there any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, approval of our October 10, 2019 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second that?
We have a motion from Commissioner Mitchell, second from Commissioner Voigt. Any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, item 6, call to the public. If anybody would like to come forward, now is the time. We also have one at the end of the meeting. Okay, we'll close item 6. We'll move on to item 7A. This is a zoning amendment application number 19-003, maintenance of sidewalks and pathways. In Heartland Township, when we do a public hearing, we're going to open it up here in a moment. We'll allow our township planner to introduce the amendment that's being proposed. We'll see if there's any public comments involved with that. That will be the time to come forward. Then we'll close the public hearing. Planning Commission will then chat about the topic and decide what we're going to do with it this evening. So what I'd like to do is open the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. for the applicant Heartland Township. The township is proposing zoning amendments to section 5.12.1.e, maintenance of sidewalks and pathways. And just for the record, all public notice requirements for this public hearing have been met. So with that, we'll turn it over to Troy.
Thank you. Normally I have some kind of a map I can go to, but that's not really the case on this one. It's an ordinance amendment to section 5.12 in our zoning ordinance. That language currently requires all property owners to maintain sidewalks and to remove snow from their sidewalks. We are essentially taking all of that language out. The reason for that, we have been informed, I guess I have been informed, and I'm informing you now through this meeting. Our attorney is suggesting that we take this language out of our zoning ordinance and adopt a separate police powers ordinance, which would allow for greater enforcement authority on these type of matters. So this language is being removed from our zoning ordinance. A separate ordinance will go to the township board. It will not come to the planning commission. Those type of ordinances do not require review by the planning commission. And at some point in the future, that ordinance will be adopted by the township board. I do not have time dates on any of that stuff, but that's what I know.
All right. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments on that? Didn't think so. Okay, so we were going to close our public hearing at 7:05 p.m. Any questions from the Planning Commission to Troy?
I just have one comment. The new ordinance will allow a faster response to take care of a problem, correct? I mean, that's one of the benefits of doing it the way we're proposing to do it.
Yeah, through that police powers ordinance, somebody could be cited that day that the violation is noticed. Under the zoning ordinance, we have to give at least 10 days notice. In some cases, it can be more, so.
Okay.
The snow will be melted by then.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, if you're so inclined, this evening on packet page number 8, up at the top, you'll see a recommended motion.
I move to recommend approval of zoning ordinance text amendment 19-003 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of zoning text amendment number 19-003 from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Mitchell. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, next up, item 8A, site plan application number 19-011. This is the cottages on Clark. This is a PD concept plan. I don't know anybody with the applicant wants to come forward and get you. Sure, absolutely. Come on up and we'll have you introduce yourself in a moment. We're going to allow the planner to introduce the project to us and the public, and then we'll have you guys give any presentation that you would like to add. And then after that, we'll go through the staff review letter. So with
Okay.
that, Troy, if you'd like to introduce the project.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start off by showing a general location of where this area is. This is a zoning map of Heartland Township, and the major intersection of 23 going north and south and 59. This would be that intersection. The area that we're looking at would be just to the east of it off of M59, and then this is Clark Road going north. It would be this area that is green. I'll zoom in on that area. It's green because the zoning of that CA, Conservation Agriculture, is colored in that classification on this map. So this is the area that we're talking about. And then this red portion down here is an adjacent property that they are also pursuing to acquire so that they could have access to Rovey Road to the south. So it is these two parcels here that we're going to be talking about. So I have a site plan of their proposed project. So this is Clark Road on the east side of this property, and then Rovey Road just to the south here of this property. And I guess I'll start off by maybe describing this property. This is an aerial image of this property. This particular image does not include the part of the property that goes down to Rovey Road. This would be the northernmost, the 23-acre piece, if you will. And you can see on this that the west half, I'll call it, of this property is largely a wetland area. So it's really the eastern portion of this property along Clark Road that they're looking to develop with a condominium development. And then this plan depicts how they would do that. There's a single access that comes in just south of Matthew Lane, and as it comes in, it splits with a portion of that going to the north in a cul-de-sac, and another portion going to the south to connect to Rovey Road. There are 49 single-family homes on this development. This is a unique development for Heartland Township. They are proposing what I guess they call lake homes, which are generally narrower and longer as they sit on the property. These are not necessarily on the lake here, but it's that style of home that would be narrow and longer. And you have a copy of the house layout plans. There's a couple different layouts that they have proposed. This is the layout with 49 units. They are proposing a planned development. That process of a planned development requires, I refer to it as a three-step process. The first step is conceptual review, which goes to both the Planning Commission and the board. And that is where the applicant essentially has presented an idea to the township to say, do you think this project is worth pursuing? That's kind of the question they're asking here tonight. No formal decision will be made tonight by the Planning Commission. We're not making a recommendation for approval. We're not making a recommendation for denial or anything like that. This is just feedback. And then from that, the applicant will gauge, is this project worth moving forward with. And if they decide to move forward, then obviously the next step is to the Township Board for the last part of the conceptual review. And then the next phase will be preliminary review, where the applicant's going to have to provide much more detailed site plans. That's where the plans start to get a little more expensive to prepare. And those plans will be much more detailed with specific landscaping, specific street details, pathways, lighting, building materials on the structures, and so forth. Then final stage is the final stage of the PD. That's where they'll come in with the actual condominium documents and the PD agreement that is part of that. When you do a PD, a planned development, there are some advantages to this project. The applicant can have certain requirements that otherwise apply in the zoning ordinance waived, that the site plan might not comply with normal traditional development zoning regulations. So those zoning regulations can be waived as part of this process. The trade-off there is that the project brings amenities or a benefit to the community as a whole. So what I've done is kind of briefly outlined the project, kind of outlined the process that they have to go through, and I'll be available for any questions you might have.
Perfect. Now it's your turn. You get to introduce it any way you like. When you're done, then what we'll do is take that staff review letter that we have from the 14th, and we'll go through it with you and Troy and ourselves and converse about it. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, my name's Jeremy Harrison. I'm a resident of Heartland here, so family here. I'm going to do this a little non-traditionally here because I want to lead you to where I'm trying to go. But we've lived here for about 8 years. My family and I, we have 6 kids, and 4 of them are in the schools right now. And we live at Meyer because we have 6 kids. We live there. We're there probably 2 times a day, no joke. And every time we're driving in there, we see this wide open field right to the next to Meyer. Like, man, that would be so awesome if that was some type of development. You could walk to Meyer, you could walk to the new movie theater. Why isn't anybody doing this? And over the last, like I said, years, I've had this idea, this vision. And only recently, it's like, let's just try to make something happen here. And let's see if we could do something, what it would look like. And I took it from there to say, okay, what would a site plan look like? So I have to look, hey, there's a small amount of acreage, and we want to fit in some decent density to make this really fit. So what do we do? So I do a lot of research, and I land on one of the probably most, I don't know, famous would be the word, but land planner named Rick Harrison out of Minnesota. He's done over 1,000 neighborhoods, and he's very adept at this type of style, which is how do you fit a lot of dense homes, a lot of density into a small spot. Well, Rick said, if we're going to do this, there's somebody I recommend, and his name is Doug Dehaan. So he led me to Doug Dehaan, who's out of Holland, and a very accomplished builder, developer out in Holland, and said, if you're going to do it, you need to bring in Doug. And so I made a phone call to Doug, and we talked about the idea, and he's actually doing this idea out in Holland. So I know there'll be some questions about that, and he'll probably be able to help you understand what he's doing out there. But we brought in Doug, 20 plus years, 30 plus years now? I don't want to age him too much, but too late. 30 plus years in the building developing industry. After that, I'm like, okay, we got a great developer. We got the land planner. We need an engineer who's going to be kind of accomplished in this area. And we all know here that live in Heartland the successes of Fiddler Grove neighborhood. And that neighborhood lent me to David LeClaire of Livingston Engineering as the engineer on that property. So he was my first call. And I'm glad that he accepted because he's been great to work with. So David is doing all the engineering on the property. So the purpose was to build a team here of people that know how to do this and have done this because this is such a unique type development for Heartland. That's not something that anybody has seen around here. With those people in place, I needed help running the company, raising the funds, handling the finances. And I met with Ron Newton, who's actually an owner of the company, accomplished executive, and in running multiple companies, and including a mortgage company. So I feel like we have a team that can really help answer all the questions and really build something beautiful for Heartland. So that was the whole concept of how do we do something that is very unique, but yet meeting the demographic of what we feel is the need here in Heartland. So with the Fiddler's Grove, we saw how quickly those sold through, because there's just not that type of property here locally, and there's a large demand. And so we feel like this is going to be a similar development, although more unique, but we're able to offer walk to Meyer, walk to the movie theater. We're going to have trails that are going to go right into the town square development. And we actually changed the name just recently from the Cottages on Clark to the Cottages at Town Square for that reason, because we really wanted it to feel a part of the entire development. And we feel it can actually lend some credence to the development, and vice versa. We can get some marketing from the fact that we're part of it, but it also makes the whole development look more official and more developed. And so that's kind of the short view and maybe the 1,000-foot view, but I kind of wanted you to know where it came from, because I think that could help with some of the questions. And from that, I know there's a lot of specific questions on the site plan and on the units. So if there's anything that you want us to start with, we can start.
Well, I know you have a presentation. You've got some
Yes.
slides and everything. If you want to walk us through that
Sure.
and your flyover
Yeah.
type of stuff, and then what we'll do is then we'll go through the staff letter after they've had a chance to see everything.
Sure.
And-
We'll go through this. We're going to,
Yep.
you want to go? We're going to give the floor to my friend Doug here.
They're laughing.
No.
Ron thinks I should have been a cross between a TV evangelist and a game show host. So my name is Douglas DeHaan from Holland, Michigan. I've worked with Rick Harrison for over 14 years. We've done 22 developments. I've done 22 developments. The architecture is something that's interesting to understand. There's a paradigm and a perception about what it is, and I'd like to explain that. But first and foremost, we're doing 3 of these right now in the Grand Rapids area, 1 in Holland, 1 in Muskegon, 1 in Grand Rapids. But what we're doing is we're taking difficult properties to develop, which is what we saw here. And actually, when I met Ron and Jeremy, I was very excited about the project. I'm investing in it. I'm going to become a partner. And the reason is because I believe in what they're doing and I believe in the product. And I want to help them to help Heartland. Part of this is that when you have a high water table, you cannot do lower levels. You can't do 9-foot basements because you have the conditions of the water. Often there's a huge expense with dewatering to try and get these type of developments in. So to do a slab on grade, 0-step design, which offers for our age-in-place and our disabled community. So when you have a veterans hospital and you want to keep the aged people, like myself, I'm 56 years old, I could be his dad. So anyway, I said it. So, but anyway, to keep those active adult folks in your community and not move out because they don't have the type of architecture to fit their lifestyle. What we're finding is that a lot of folks that are in their late 50s and 60s that are beginning to retire or maybe selling their farm or a larger home, and they're divesting their asset either to 2 homes or putting some in an investment. This is an alternate that we think that will fit this community very well. We think that there's 50 people that would love to live in a 0-step design community. So we're going to offer the opportunity to go up, not down, for kids, grandkids, storage, that type of thing. But I have all main floor living. We're focusing on the porch, which is extended in a living condition outside the home, which is part of the community. Also, if you've noticed in the design, there's designs that often have side mount garages, which is much more, we think, visually appealing. Fiddler's Grove, I think, is an adorable neighborhood. It's great, but they all have front load garages. And so some of these communities look like the community of garage doors. So when you can turn some of them, it kind of explains how the architecture works. And I think it's an asset to the community to see some of the side elevations. We find that a lot of seniors or active adults like myself that move into these communities often do several upgrades They do radiant floors. They do a number of different things to the home that become an asset. They become little jewel boxes. We're finding folks at this demographic aren't interested in size. They're interested in amenity. And so this will be a very well-built community. I think the other paradigm, and I've sat before 30 boards like this, is that there's this narrow design is really nothing other than taking a conventional ranch, turning it on end, and living front to back, or side end to end instead of front to back. So you create a viewscape out the end of the home versus out the back of the home. So you don't need 80-foot lots, you need 40-foot pads. You turn the house sideways and you have a wonderful, it still lives the same, it just lives out the end. The other thing is that it's about the same density as a townhome. So if you pushed them all together, you could have these wonderful 12-unit townhomes. But by separating them and having 12-foot in between, it gives you the transparency, it gives you air, and it gives you privacy. But it also gives you the affordability. So there are some specific reasons. So when you look at the grade, the demographics, as Jeremy said, the proximity to Myers, this group is going to probably want to walk to get prescriptions, see a movie. But we also looked at other adjacent properties, and the properties across the street we thought would be better fitted for families that could be on the same side as the road as a school. We thought this one would be well suited to be attached to the town square and the amenities that are growing, restaurants and that type of thing. And Myers is a hub. It's a great hub. So there's an intentionality to the design, to the thought process. But I also wanted to be able to explain the architecture, because I think when it's new, when you come to an area and you haven't seen it, it's usually doubted and questioned, but it works.
Okay.
Yeah, so that leads us right into the, I guess we'd call it presentation, but we basically have some slides that show, this right here is the site plan that everybody's already seen. So you can see that, as Doug discussed, we have narrow homes. So that might look different compared to maybe what we would traditionally see. These are, I believe, 26 feet wide. And again, they're not single-family homes that you would try to compare these to. It's very similar to, you take a townhome and you just put a little space in between it. Therefore, you're not attached to anybody. Yet you still have something that feels like your own, and you don't have somebody banging on the other side of the wall. That's kind of the concept. So you can see we're able to fit the 49 units in this manner. We have two entrances. One is onto Clark, the other's onto Rovey, which is going to come across right around where Culver's is. So you kind of see on the other side of Culver's, the plan is to have another entrance over there. And as long as it's engineering feasible. But that's the plan, so we can have the traffic and the fire trucks and everything have a nice seamless path. Any questions on the actual site plan before we scroll up? Should we do that, or should we just go through it?
Just keep going, because
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll go back to this letter, and we're going to hit that.
Sure. So we can go, so these are the different home plans, and maybe Doug, if you did just kind of share, you see every home is going to have a porch. They're actually called front porches, not back porches in this design. But that's going to be inclusive in all of the units. So they're all included. So you're really kind of living out of that part of your home, and you're able to sit on the back and have a coffee or whatever that is. But all of the design is kind of facing out that way. Whether you're sitting in the kitchen, you can see right out through the porch into the back, or we call the front. From the site plan, you can't see it right here. The site plan, if you could scroll back up to the site plan real quick, if you can see behind each of those homes, there's a little path that leads to the long path on each. So you see the path that goes all the way around. So that's essentially a walking path that we're going to put in, so you're able to take a nice stroll around the neighborhood. And then each of the homes outside of the porch side, that's where your porch leads to the main path. So it's very much of a community feel as opposed to the single-family rural feel. It's much more of an urban type community feel. Let's go back up to the homes. Do you have any comments on the homes other than what you shared? So the plan is to have three distinct styles. We're going to have a ranch that's going to be right around 1,300 square feet. We're going to have a story and a half that's right around 1,800 square feet. And then we're going to go back over the garage for a story and a half plus that's going to be about 2,200 square feet. All of them with vaulted ceilings in that main area with the kitchen, living room. All that's going to be vaulted. And then big windows looking out towards the porch. We're doing a very luxurious design with quartz countertops and high-end cabinets, et cetera, radiant heating in the flooring, things of that nature to make this really a special product, not just something we're trying to get in and out as fast as we can, but really take the attention to detail. And just like I said before, make it beautiful. So those are the units. And then we have a little bit of an aerial video I think would be good. So it's kind of like a CGI video that these aren't the color of the homes, but these are the size of the homes, and very, very close to what they're going to look like from a structural standpoint and a size standpoint. And this way you can kind of see that they're narrow, but they each have some space in between. It's 12 feet in between. And you're able to see how those walking paths come into each of the porches. So some of the units are going to have kind of a shared driveway with some side entry. Some are going to be front entries, just depending on how the site, their particular site works. We want to have as many side entries as possible because it's much more pleasing to the eye to look at a window as opposed to a garage. So we're going to do as much as that. That's a retention pond. That's the purpose of that. And there's things that we plan on putting in, gazebos and things of that nature, that we'll show as we get more granular with this. But right now, this is just kind of an overview to give an idea of what narrow homes look like on this exact site. So this is 100% to scale in this unit, in this development. So this is exactly the size of the units, the exact where the roads are going as per our site plan. And you can see it's much more of a urban community feel that we feel fits with the town square development, that it's inclusive to what's going on around it. And hopefully there's the walkability to, like we said, to Meyer, to the movies. People don't have to exit onto 59 to go to the movies, or to even have to go onto Clark Road. We'll have a path that leads right up towards Rovey Road, up towards where Meyer is. So the vision is to have it a friendly, walkable style community. Target market, yes, there's going to be, like Fiddler's Grove, we think there's going to be a lot of senior, but that's not our only target. There's the young professional that doesn't want a single family home, that they might want zero maintenance. They want somebody to mow their grass for them, and which is what we're going to do. That's all going to be inclusive. Maintenance-free lifestyle is what we're going after. So we do feel, like I said, there's going to be, the 55 plus is probably going to be liking these a lot. We're doing zero-step design, as Doug said, which means there's no steps into your house. You just walk right in. So if you're in a wheelchair or a walker, there's no problems. Same thing with the bathrooms. So we're doing that as a way to appease that, but you know what? Everybody would like that. So that's just a little bit of a view of what it's going to look like, minus like the bright yellow color. I don't think we're doing that. But it's just to give you some ideas. The colors are going to be multiple color. We're not just going to do tan and taupe and white. That's not the plan. We're going to bring in some color. That palette is still being worked on. But just to give you an idea, these are cottage-style homes. That's why I call it the cottages, where they're going to be fun and playful and not necessarily too traditional.
So I had a question, if we can at any time. So Jeremy, how will you plan on getting to Rovey Road and then walking Rovey Road towards the Meyer and towards the theater?
Sure. So on the site plan, there'll be, obviously we have an entrance onto Rovey from the development, so the multiple entrances. So there'll be an entrance there. And then the plan is to also create a walking path that goes up our property to, I guess that would be the west, just a walking path that goes towards Meyer. By having that, we own that entire strip that goes all the way up, so we would own the land that goes all the way up to where the road that comes in at Meyer.
So the plan might be for your residents to stay on the north side of Rovey Road. There's just not a sidewalk shown there. I don't know if there's a sidewalk
Not
on the
yet.
south side.
There's not a sidewalk shown that's on this plan. There's not a sidewalk that's shown that's going up there. And we're still determining what to do, because there's a lot of grass there, what to do on some of that property that we're not going to put homes on, because as you go west towards Meyer, there's a lot of grass and a lot of trees. We're determining what, if anything, we want to develop over there.
So that the connection wouldn't be at the north also along McCarthy? it would be along the south at Rovey,
Yeah, Rovey and Clark would be the two.
because it's all wet between, it seems, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Anything else you'd like to add to your
Any
presentation?
of you guys have anything?
I think the reason I got involved, it just made sense for the community. I no longer live in Heartland. I live, real close by in the Fenton neighborhood, and when Jeremy started speaking to me about this, it's been longer than 5 years. And he's been looking in the areas, and I think one of the things that stimulated is it's not going to be very much longer. My children are already moved out, and I started to think, what does that look like for me? Does that mean I have to move out of the community that I love to be able to accommodate a goal? And I think that's what this does, is accommodate something that's luxury. Even though there's not a lake, it does make you feel that you have a lake living because of the way it's constructed on a thin lot, so to speak. Even though they're not lots, it feels that way. And instead of building something that's long and sometimes not the most attractive, it gives them the individuality that life isn't over. This is maybe a next step in their season of life, where they're still having fun. They can leave their home because it's maintenance-free and maybe fly off to their home in Arizona or Florida. And it does that without creating challenges for them to have to worry, what am I going to do when I leave for the next 3 months? So I think that made sense. The other thing that made sense with the community is it's continued to grow over the last 5 years with, again, the theater, the restaurants. And again, hopefully this community will stimulate other business owners that have been looking for the density nearby. That was the one thing that kind of caught me, because I'm more on the financial end. I'm not the creative guy. I don't go out and speak as good as these guys do. But what I thought was, gosh, what if there's 49 families or 49 couples or 49 single people that now say, hey, I'll spend more money right here. And then all of a sudden that drives more tax dollars towards, maybe it's a privately held business, or maybe it's another franchise like Starbucks or big box store. So when I thought about that, it made more sense for the community than maybe sometimes when you build further out in the rural area.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? We're going to go through the review
through it.
letter and probably have questions
Yeah,
for
that'd be
you.
good.
And tonight, just for everybody's benefit, it's just information gathering and questions. As Troy had mentioned, this is the first step of a PD. We're just going to review a staff letter that was put together for us by Troy in the planning department. It has some highlighted areas that will give us an outline on what to talk about, and then we'll send you on your way for the evening. So I am looking at the staff letter dated November 14th, and I thought we could begin on, it would be the page 3 of the staff letter, could be packet page 13, item B, proposed density. Paragraph A was just the background information that we've all talked about. And then item B talks about proposed density. As Troy has mentioned, the property is zoned CA, but it has future land use for multiple family. And there's quite a difference in the density that you can achieve with the two. Troy, can you speak to the multiple family? And
Yeah, so when you calculate density for planned development, you need to look at not the zoning map, which is this one, but you need to look at the future land use map, which is this one. And if I zoom in on that area, this property that we're looking at is no longer green. It's in this orangish brown color, which means multifamily up to 8 units per acre. The other portion of it is commercial. Unfortunately, that's 0 units per acre. But with what they have here, they're permitted something up to 186 units. There is potential for bonuses in the PD. We're at 49, so I put that information in on the bonuses, but we're well under what would be permitted typically.
And obviously, to get that type of 186 units, you'd be talking about going up.
Yeah.
So you'd be talking apartment project. That's what we're talking about when we talk about multiple family.
Yep. Yeah, we felt the town, seriously, that again, as residents, yeah, I think this would be a much more aesthetically pleasing development than a 3-story apartment complex that goes all the way across.
Any comments on density? Are you at this point in time, comfortable with 49 units at this point?
I'm not sure I'm comfortable at this point. Let me put it that way. And I'm just going to take a position that I'm not opposed to this. I am not comfortable at the moment from the standpoint that the density is calculated off of 23 acres. However, only about 9 to 10 acres are actually buildable. So in reality, the density is higher. And I'm not quite sure exactly how that's going to look, and that's my concern.
Yeah. I understand.
So other than that, I like the house idea. I think you're on the right track there. The first one to look at the house design and gave it a thumbs up for this area. I'm just uncertain how all of these homes pack into that portion at this time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on it? I think for me, the devil's is always in the details of how you put it together.
Right.
Yeah, I would just make a comment. If you're developing 10 acres at 8 units an acre, that's 80 units, and there's 49, so you're almost half.
Right.
And I think the 3D did an excellent job of showing how they're going to look. So if you want to see what this is going to look like before they're built, I don't know how else you can do it.
Right,
Because
right.
I don't think Google Maps would do that nice of a job.
Probably not. There's a lot of things that can go in the devil in the details comments, some of the specifics of architecture, you don't have to be to that point yet.
No,
That
but-
comes in the future.
Yeah. We have a 300 plan library, and it's a very intentional design. Windows are placed, if you look at the style of the architecture, the long windows are on the end, they're transoms in the center, and that's for privacy. That's so you're not looking into your neighbor's home. So they're staged and they're staggered, so that you're not looking into neighbors' homes. So there's an issue of bedrooms, privacy, public areas, that's all taken into consideration. So when you look at the design and the architecture, it's not only the scale and the size of the window, it's the location and the setback, but there's a lot of intentionality to this design. It's far more difficult than a conventional neighborhood. So if anyone looks at this and says, well, yeah, it looks like it's the easy way out, I'd say it's probably 3 times harder,
Okay.
just to share.
That's great. My comment would still be that it'll be when you get into the next phase, if you choose to go ahead, which are some of those details of what the building materials are, color schemes, you're going to get into some landscaping, the whole package as it's presented. That would be my comment to it. I think that would probably go to somewhat of what you're saying. You need, as we talk and they move further through, we'll get better detail as to
Exactly.
relieve your discomfort or not.
Exactly. And I agree with you 100%. The virtual already moved me one step on the plus side.
Well, and
As I say, looking at a 2D and you look at the impact here, I really scratched my head. So the virtual was a big step in understanding how it would appear.
And when you look at the organization of the windows, the private spaces, but then you also organize your landscape to complement that. When you use cement board, it's almost the same insurance as brick. So when you have cement board from a fire standpoint, you have really a cement concrete product on your home. We minimize the overhangs to 16 inches, so you don't have that, a 2-foot overhang, so you don't have to comply. There's 12 foot in between foundation to foundation. But having built in a number of communities, we understand the challenges of that. But I have to share with you that color has never been an ordinance. It can be a desire, but it's not an ordinance. And so I think Jeremy said it very carefully, whether these were all white or all tan, or there was multiple colors. I think it was supposed to feel more festive because it was cottages, but and I've often said this, color's not an ordinance. So it can be subject to approval, but what we're going to do is we're going to use colors that are marketable, that are pleasing, that are accepted. I mean, we wouldn't pick a color that wouldn't sell, so because we're still after selling these. So it is, and you have to realize that this market is relatively conservative. So you take all those things into consideration. So it's a land use, the type of land, the product, and the purchaser. So,
I think when we get to the level where we're looking at materials, we've already been counseling with professionals, but not limited to Doug's. He's got a showroom. We went over there and we looked at different builders. And, you've got J-channel and you've got all these different things that don't look appeasing to the eye. And then we come over and we look at some of the materials he's using, and we don't have J-channel. It's nicely tucked behind the window trim, and it's a nicer look. There's not wavy, siding down the side. And those things, I think, really do start to count as you add them up. Now, it's not the cheapest to build that way, but we've made a decision to fulfill the desire of the community, but also the desire of what we want to put our name on and say, gosh, we did that one, and that steps us into a whole nother development down the road. So we also understand the aspect of, if we want to do another one in the community, we better do this one right.
Yeah, and I think my comment just goes to exactly what you're saying. As you get those details, that will probably help with some of the density question people might have. You build an awesome-looking building, and you put it on an interesting layout with some appropriate landscaping, and somebody's going to go, wow.
and just,
But it's all in how you put it together. You could do that and make that look like, not like that.
yeah. Well, and it has to be thoughtful, but if you present a PD, you have to stick to the PD. So, I mean, it has to look like, your audio and video have to match. But the other thing, too, is that, as you look at this, the highest and best use of the property is to do multifamily. But is that the best, highest in use for the community, both from aging demographics, age-in-place active adult? So, I mean, there would be a lot more financial gain by using a different product. But is it the right product and the right fit? So this is more, I think, in respect to the community and what it needs than it is a financial decision. Because, I mean, obviously, you're not going to do it if it's not profitable. But on the other hand, it could be far more profitable.
Yeah, and just for, I assume the information in our packet is true. Your targeted pricing is $350,000 to $500,000.
Yep.
So
And also one-
I would think
Oh, go
that would probably demand something of a nicer exterior.
Yeah. And I also want to say, Mike, you mentioned the 2D. We actually have that in 3D, and I have goggles for you. So if you ever want to see it in 3D, just let me know.
You need Dramamine, though.
So my comment, if I
Yeah.
could, Doug, would be, the other developments that you're referring to in Grand Rapids or Muskegon, is this a similar product, similar layout, similar density than any of those are?
Very similar, yes. So one, we're just getting underway. It's actually a brownfield. So we're dealing with the contaminated soil condition, which is why we're doing slab on grade. The other one is a lake property. It's near Lake Michigan, about a quarter of a mile away, and it's all high water table. And I don't know if anyone's watched the news on the west side of the state, but we're all wearing floaties right now.
So could those neighborhoods be available, maybe to Troy, so we could take a look at those?
Sure.
Just to see if it's similar, just to get a feel for what that, so I appreciate all the comments, and I think I'm on board with this being new and this being the right product for that area. But the density is just different for us, right? They're close together, it's exciting, it's neat to see, but it'd be nice to see the other developments maybe that you already have in place, if you could.
It's similar but not identical.
Sure.
Philosophically, yes.
Okay. Any other questions on the density?
Just one quick comment is that the thing about the density is I'm okay with the density, especially knowing that the future land use is multifamily and we could see a totally different product there that we wouldn't want. So this be a nice compromise if we could get it to work.
Okay. I'm on packet page number 14, page 4 of the staff review letter, public roads. Obvious, we're coming off Clark and Rovey. It's been mentioned several times. When you get into your road design, if you worked on, I didn't remember who worked on Gronell's project. You did it. So I remember we had something with curbs, and we went to roll-off curbs versus standard, don't remember width of roads. I read in the fire department letter the potential of limiting parking to one side.
Right.
I'm thinking we only do that when the road isn't 30 feet back a curb.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if you're not doing that, or if you want to get away from that parking on one side. I just tossed that out there as some background.
Sure. I mean, we haven't gotten to the details of that yet.
Yeah.
Roads in Fiddler Grove, I can tell you, are 28 feet back to back.
Yeah.
In my recollection, is parking on one side only.
Yeah, I
So-
think once you hit 30, I think the fire marshal lets you park on both sides.
Right.
So as you evaluate your density and road length, you might consider that if you can do it. If it doesn't fit, then it is what it is. You'll propose what works.
Right.
Any comments on roads?
Well, since you brought up parking, it appears to me, and I just wanted to ask a question, I'm going to call them shared driveways between the units. For each individual resident, is there enough room for 2 additional cars, for like 2 guests to park as well? So they're not parking in the roadways?
Yes, the driveway in front of each unit is 18 feet, and normally that would be like a Suburban with a trailer hitch.
Yeah,
So
that's perfect.
You
Great.
could have, each one could have 2 in front and still navigate out.
Terrific, I like that.
Okay, any other question on that? Okay, I'm on item D, traffic generation. Looks like we require some type of traffic impact analysis at the next step. Okay. E, this 8-foot wide emergency foot, is that trail, is that path still on this one? Are we talking about the path around the outside? Is that what we're referring to? Or it says we have an 8-foot wide emergency trail, additional
right here.
details need to be provided.
Oop, I can't, I'm going to zoom in. This right here.
Oh, that,
That's a fire.
fire lane, okay. Yeah, you'll just have to work with the fire department on getting it built to their requirements. Utilities, any comments on that?
Can we go back to the emergency? So if you had access off of Rovey, would you still have this drive?
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Obviously, you know, depending on the final, what was acceptable, what's not, the road width.
It's better to have too much
Engineering.
than not enough.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're trying
I
to
agree,
throw that
yeah.
extra in there to be
okay, very good.
accommodating to the fire.
Okay,
Previous development I was in had one of these, and actually, it was grassed over,
Right.
and you didn't even know it was there. They just had to plow it in the winter. So,
I guess, discussing roads, the fire department mentioned that they would like to see a larger radius. They said your radius appears to be too small. Is that correct?
Is that the previous?
Have you addressed it, or?
Yes, we did take the
Okay.
template from the fire department, put it on that layout, and it does work fine.
Okay.
Getting through the development, yes.
Yeah, we've amended the site plan multiple times after their feedback. Multiple times.
I guess another road issue is have you gone to the road commission yet?
No, we have not.
Okay. I'm just curious to know if they are going to require extra lanes, decel lanes or left turn lanes to be added, and what that would do to the frontage along Clark Road. You're already pretty close, you're squeezing in a sidewalk, and at one point, I think there was some discussion about some screening, so that was one of the reasons I just want to know if you'd gone to the road commission yet. Okay.
okay, page 5, design details. We kind of talked a little bit, or they have spoken about architecture and design details. Any comments on that? Look forward to it. Open space? You need a minimum of 25%. I'd say you probably got that. You got to leave 10% of that usable, so you'll need to provide the calculation showing where the usable open space is. Landscaping. Any thoughts on landscaping? Obviously,
We haven't determined, but we definitely want to make that a main focus. It needs to be a nicer landscaping, layout. That's where we think there can be create some privacy and some shared landscaping to make it look a lot nicer, but also do it, a little more individual feel and look. There has been some discussion based on our first meeting of, how to berm that at Clark Road, and that's why we changed the site plan several times. Not the only reason, obviously, but one of the reasons so that we could move that back, still fit in the sidewalk that's required, but also give it a better, because we were worried about the landscape berm ending up being a negative flow on water and being intrusive to the homes that sit there.
Anything to add to that one?
Yeah. Well, the berm also puts the homes in the plat. And I think there's something there that you don't want them to feel like they're on Clark Road, you want them to feel like they're in the development. So the berm is an aesthetic feature too.
Right.
So we think it's really important, but what we would do is plant on top and elevate the plants. So, and normally what we do is we always use pines because they work 24/7, 365 days, they're not deciduous. So I know the 3D flyover had a lot of deciduous trees, but Rick did that from Minneapolis, but we would probably go to more of an evergreen.
Well, we'll take those trees of that size at planting right away.
Yeah, they were rather mature.
They were rather mature. Any comments on that? You've addressed, you're going to do something with Clark Road.
Correct.
Exterior lighting, at this point anyways, you're not proposing any, who knows, maybe you will.
Street lights.
Recognizable benefits, Troy, you want to speak to that just briefly?
So any planned development, as I mentioned earlier, there's trade-offs. One, the township is, as part of it, it's almost like an agreement. The township would be willing to forego some of its regular zoning ordinance requirements for a trade-off of some or several recognizable benefits. So the applicant is required as part of this to provide some sort of recognizable benefit. And probably at the preliminary stage, we would need to know more details on what that is. So the goal is just to at least give the applicant notice
Yeah.
at this point that he's
We
got
can
it.
probably help point a few of them out that might work for you.
Just a quick question. Would a pavilion with, example, like a bike repair station inside and benches along the path as a civic feature, is that one of the items that a PD would, because what you're looking is for a civic feature is an offset and a payback for the PD, right?
Yeah, I can't, that's more of a question for the planning commission than ultimately the township board to decide. But it's a fair question at this point.
It is a fair question. One of the things I thought is that sidewalk along Rovey Drive, if we don't require it, it's a private road, and you put that in, all of a sudden, it's people in the subdivision across the street can cross Clark Road, and all of a sudden they have access to the theater. That's an example of, there's a benefit to something you're doing that benefits somebody besides the 49 homeowners. That would be an example.
Okay, great.
Lots of details to come at preliminary. You know, that's where all the hard work comes in. So any other questions or thoughts for them? You've got some initial comments from reviewing agencies. They're very preliminary, though.
So I do have a few comments, and I think Member Voigt pointed out, just to remind you that this access point here to Clark Road will require County Road Commission approval. That will probably be required before you come back for preliminary. I don't know exactly what improvements will be needed here. It's very close to Matthew Lane. I don't know if that street jog is going to be sufficient, but that's their call, not mine. Also up here, you see this line going right through here is the easement line for Matthew Lane. So you have a sidewalk and some other sidewalks within that easement. You'll need that permission from that entity that owns that easement. That permission would be required before you come back for preliminary. Also, the site units are right at the easement line up there as well. And then as part of your pathway along here, this is a regulated wetland. It's formerly the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. Now it is Eagle. So as you get close to that, and if you're doing any work in that, right down here, it looks like there's potential conflict where you will need a permit from that agency, and probably you should have that permit in hand by the time you apply for your preliminary review. Okay?
Any other questions for them
I just had one more. Yeah,
or comments?
You stated that it was maintenance-free, so the individual resident owns his own home, but the property is maintained by the,
It's association maintained.
Okay.
So as a condominium, you own from the drywall in, and the association owns from the drywall out.
Oh, okay.
So all the exterior walls and all the exterior maintenance would be done by the association. So lawn, trash, windows, exterior siding. And what we've talked about as a group is the higher that you, the higher the value of the materials and the longer, like if you use a 30-year shingle and a 50-year siding, it helps relieve that association fee every month. So, and most people would rather invest into their home and have a lesser monthly fee. So it's better to have that, a higher-end amenity. The other thing that we've often done, too, is we have a study done by an independent company that evaluates all the materials that you use on the house, or the condominium, and also the street and how it's developed, and they give you a 30-year plan on what the investment is. So example, if we use the 2-inch base on the drive and a 1.5-inch cap, we've exceeded county specs. But by doing that, you have a 30-year road, which relieves having a large fund for people to have to divest in and to grow those from down the road. So, I mean, there's a lot of condominium developments where they're replacing the road in 12, 14 years. So we take a proactive approach to that, and we do a long-term development. And one that I think is also stands the test of time. We have them that are 17 to 20 years old that are beautiful shape, but it's the investment up front.
Very good.
Any comments?
I'm really excited. I kind of came into this a little nervous, but the 3D kind of sold me. I think, you know, the way you introduced your team, you know, your credentials and your experience, I'm looking forward to the next steps. Don't you get a little pushback about no basement? Where do we store all our stuff now that we've accumulated it for 100 years?
That's the number one pushback,
Yeah,
by
that's the
far.
thing that seems tough, because I'd be ready to jump in there, but I'd be like, oh, you know, where do I put
Doug
stuff?
has a great answer for this, so listen up.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, okay, so you fight the paradigm of a slab on grade, and what do you do? Okay, so there's a couple things. Number one, you're always fighting in Michigan a basement and stamp. It's low, you need a dehumidifier, it's got spiders, and you're looking out this little daylight window, and your heat ducts are below your joist, so it's really unappealing. Actually, what we find is anyone that comes from the East Coast won't even put a guest in a lower level. Somehow in Michigan, we think that we can put everybody in a lower level, but there's many parts in the country that say, are you serious? And we say yes. And so the second thing is what we do is we put storage above the garage. We do storage trusses,
Okay.
and there's an electronic stairway that we use, so you don't have that Chevy Chase on Christmas Vacation where you pull it down and get hit in
Yeah.
the forehead. Yeah. My wife would not use one of those. So you go to the wall, push a button, it retracts, and you can store upstairs. It's heated and dry.
There we go.
So we've solved
Okay,
that.
Okay, that's good to know.
There you go.
We knew it'd be a good answer.
Well, I also, it's kind of exciting. Look forward to seeing the next phase of it. We've met a couple times in the informal site plan review committee, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here for something unique that the community would embrace. Again,
Yeah.
we'll see next
Yeah.
time you come. That's not being skeptical, that's just, we need to see. Anything else?
Just looking forward to what's next. I'm
Yeah.
also excited.
Excited.
I think it's a good product for the area, and just looking forward to see what's next.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you
Thank
for
everybody.
coming on over, and you guys have a great night. All right, now, item 9 is call to the public. So, anyone, anything, any comments? Okay, we'll close item 9. We'll go to item 10, planners report. Troy?
I do have one item. I just wanted to let you know that I attended the Livingston County Planning Commission meeting last night. We had 3 items on that agenda. First item was a rezoning on Old 23, which is where the Kubota Bobcat dealership is. The Planning Commission had recommended to rezone that property from PD to LI. It then went on to the County Planning Commission meeting. They also now have recommended to rezone that. And then we had 2 zoning text amendments. One was commonly called lake lots, and the other is the architectural standards for light industrial and industrial buildings, and those were also recommended for approval to our township board.
Perfect.
It was a very late night, though.
Well, I'm glad we could make this one shorter for you
Thank
then.
you.
Item 11, committee reports, comments, anyone?
I don't have it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Support?
Voigt and Murphy, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
We're just trying
Thank
to
you
make
for
the
coming
students
out.
last a
Good
little
night.
longer.
Right.
I'm thinking if you really want to be here.